Hello friends, in this video we are going to discuss about the different theories related to the origin and evolution of new species. Now come towards the mutation theory. Hugo de Vries, the scientist, he have proposed this mutation theory. The mutation, it shows that the sudden inheritable drastic change in an chromosome number. It may be due to environmental factors, due to some chemical agents, some radiations like X-ray, ultraviolet ray. These all the things are responsible for these mutation. The evening primrose, that plant is an ideal example that shows the mutation that we called it as a 4 o'clock plant or Oinothera lamarckiana. The Hugo de Vries observed most of the offspring shows similarities with their parents in many characters, and some of the offspring shows the appearance of a sudden or spontaneous variation which is a clearly different from a phenotypic expression of the parents. These sudden variations were called mutations. He noted that these sudden changes are inheritable and proposed the mutation theory. Here the plant shows the various colors of the flower on a same twig and on a same plant. That is because of the mutation. Now the objections to the mutation theory. Variations observed by Hugo de Vries were actually due to chromosomal aberration. The rate of mutation is very slow as compared to requirement of evolution. Chromosomal aberration have little significance in evolution as they are quite unstable. Now the modern synthetic theory. R. Fisher, J.S.B. Haldane, T. Zobesky, G. Huxley, E. Mayer, Simpson, Stevens, Fisher, Swale, Wright, Mendel, Morgan. These all the scientists they have contributed for modern synthetic theory, and that theory is based on the some concept like the genetic variation, natural selection, and isolation. What is a genetic variation? The change in a gene and gene frequencies is known as a genetic variation. Which are the factors responsible for this genetic variation? That is the gene mutation, which is a sudden, permanent, inheritable change in this gene. The gene mutation takes place in the chromosome, maybe addition or deletion of the chromosome number. The point mutation leads to some alteration in the gene sequence that shows the phenotypic appearance of an organism is also variable. The genetic recombination. In sexually reproducing organisms during gamete formation, exchange of genetic material occur between non-sister chromatid of a homologous chromosome called crossing over, which leads to genetic recombination that produces new gametic combination which result in variation. Fertilization between opposite mating gametes leads to various recombinations resulting into the phenotypic variation causing change in the frequency of allele. Gene flow. It is the movement of a gene into or out of the population. Gene movement may be in the form of the migration of organism or gamete or segment of DNA. Genetic drift. Random fluctuation in allele frequency occurring in the natural population by pure chance is called genetic drift. It is an important factor for evolutionary change. Chromosomal aberration. The structural morphological change in chromosome due to rearrangement is called chromosomal aberration. Deletion, that is the loss of gene from chromosome. Duplication, genes are repeated or double in number. Inversion, a particular segment of chromosome is broken and get reattached to the same chromosome in an inverted position. due to 180-degree twist. There is no loss or gain of a gene complement of chromosome. Translocation. Transfer of a part of chromosome or set of gene to a non-homologous chromosome is a translocation. Here, that diagram shows the aberration. In the first, we can see here deletion, that is the segment get removed. In the second diagram, the segment get inserted, that is the insertion. In the next, here the genes get duplicated, shows the double addition of this gene. Inversion, they are going to change the position. The translocation shows the shifting of the gene, and the repeat expansion, they shows the multiplication of that genes. Now natural selection. According to Darwin, natural selection is the main driving force behind the evolution. This holds the genetic variation rise within the population. The fittest will be the selective advantage and will be the more likely to produce offspring than the rest, as the fit continues to enjoy greater survival and reproductivity. New species will eventually evolve. Alternatively, natural selection is the process by which better adapted organisms grow and produce more number of offspring in a population. It brings about evolutionary changes by favoring differential reproduction of genes that bring about change in a gene frequency from one generation to next generation. Selection against the harmful mutation leads to mutation balance, in which allele frequency of a harmful recessive remain constant generation after generation. This natural selection encourages those genes or traits that assure highest degree of adaptive efficiency between the population and the environment. Industrial melanism, it is one of the best example for natural selection. Here, this industrial melanism, that is the color of the moth, it will be get changed due to these pollutions affecting in that area, and they shows the color changes in this moth. This natural selection that encourage those genes or traits that assure the highest degree of adaptive efficiency between population and environment, and that is the example, the ideal example is industrial melanism. These moths are nocturnal and during daytime they rest on the tree trunk. White winged moth can camouflage well with the lichen covered trees that help them to accept the predatory birds. On their hands, the black winged moth resting on lichen covered tree trunk were easy victim for the predatory birds and their number was reduced. During Industrial Revolution, large number of industries came up in Great Britain. The industries released a black sooty smoke that covered and killed the lichen growing on tree and turned the tree black due to pollution. This change became an advantage to the black-winged moth that camouflaged well with the black tree trunk and their number increased, while the white-winged moth become victim to predatory birds due to which their number get reduced. Thus, natural selection has resulted in establishment of a phenotypic trait in the changing environmental conditions. That is the ideal example how the factors shows the natural selection. Now isolation. Isolation is the separation of population of a particular species into smaller unit which prevent interbreeding between them. Some barrier which prevent gene flow or exchange of gene between isolation population is called isolating mechanism. Number of isolating mechanisms are operated in nature and therefore divergences and speciation may occur. Geographical isolation and reproductive isolation. Geographical isolation is also known as a physical isolation. It occurs when an original population is divided into two or more groups by geographical barrier that is a river, ocean, mountain, glacier. These barriers prevent interbreeding between isolated groups. The separated groups are exposed to different kinds of environmental factors and they acquired new trait by mutation. The separated population develop distinct gene pool and they do not interbreed. Thus, the new species have been formed by geographical isolation, that is the Darwin's finches. Reproductive isolation occurs due to change in genetic material, gene pool, and structure of genital organ which prevent interbreeding between population. Pre-mating or pre-zygotic isolating mechanism and post-mating or post-zygotic barriers. Pre-mating or pre-zygotic isolating mechanism. First, habitat isolation or ecological isolation. Members of a population living in the same geographic region but occupy separate habitat, that shows the isolation of habitat. Seasonal or temporal isolation, member of a population living in the same geographic region but are sexually mature at different years or different times of the year. Ethological isolation, due to specific mating behavior, the members of population do not mate. Mechanical isolation, members of two populations have differences in the structure of reproductive organs. Post-mating or post-zygotic barrier. Gamete mortality. Gametes have a limited lifespan due to one or the other reason. If the union of two gametes does not occur in a given time, they result in the mortality. That is the dysfunctioning. Zygote mortality. Here egg is fertilized but the zygote dies due to one or the other reasons. Hybrid sterility. Hybrids develop to maturity but became sterile due to failure of a proper gametogenesis. That is the mule, it is the ideal example of a hybrid but which is a sterile. This is about the different theories related to the evolution.